And honestly, look, I respect public servants who are great at being members of Congress, but it sounds like a shitty job right now. It seems like a shitty job. You have to share a bathroom with Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I am almost positive both of them pee on the seat and don't make sure that it's clean before they leave.
They don't take a little piece of TP and clean up after themselves.
No, absolutely not. Hello, and welcome for the 200th time to Hysteria. I'm Erin Ryan.
And I'm Alyssa Mastromonaco.
Alyssa, happy 200 shows.
Happy 200 shows.
Can you name something else you've done 200 times?
Just smoke pot.
You've only smoked pot 200 times? That is...
No, more.
Oh, more than 200 times.
Yeah, that's it, though. I mean, what else have we done?
I mean, everything else has been like daily routine stuff, like brushing my teeth and, you know,
washing my hair, I guess.
Yeah, we've done a lot of episodes. And you know what? After our first episode, we had Justice Kennedy retiring, and we got to 200 before Roe v. Wade was totally overturned. I feel
what a triumph.
I think we both owe ourselves a celebratory root beer float today.
Oh, I love a root beer float.
I know. It's a treat.
Wait, but what kind of root beer?
A&W.
Me too. Oh, God, we were meant to be together.
We were meant to be together. Here's to 200 more episodes.
200 more.
200 more years.
200 more.
Let's talk about Liz Cheney. Should we talk
Liz.
about Liz Cheney?
Let's talk about Liz.
So Liz Cheney has become, for better or for worse, one of the faces of the January 6th investigation, and certainly the face of the January 6th hearing. She's the person that seems to be registering the most with people. I just want us to kind of have a conversation about, like, the fact that we still know who she is. Even though she's doing the right thing, we still know who she is. And praising a person for doing the right thing after a lifetime of doing wrong things is not the same as endorsing that person forever. We are endorsing...
We are not endorsing, but in this world that is so upside down and full of people who can't find the right way to do something, I mean, we're glad. We're glad she's on the right side of history on this one.
On the morning of January 6th, President Donald Trump's intention was to remain President of the United States. Despite the lawful outcome of the 2020 election, you will see that Donald Trump and his advisors knew that he had, in fact, lost the election. But despite this, President Trump engaged in a massive effort to spread false and fraudulent information, to convince huge portions of the U.S. population that fraud had stolen the election from him.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that we have forgotten that she's on the wrong side of history for a lot of things. But, like, you know how sometimes, like, if Mitt Romney or Susan Collins does something and we'll be like, yeah, thanks for doing the absolute minimum. Yep. This is, like, more than that. You know what I mean? Right. She's become the face of something. She's probably going to lose the primary for her House seat in Wyoming. Like, she's the one person of the Republicans, again, like, not canonizing her, but she's the one person for whom there will be real consequences, most likely, for doing the right thing.
Right. And after she loses her House seat, she can go cry on her pile of money that will never, ever run out no matter what happens. She can go live in her fancy Wyoming lodge, because I don't think the Cheneys live in houses. They live in, like, fancy lodges. And you know, she will be financially, nothing bad is going to happen to her except her not being in Congress anymore. And honestly, look, I respect public servants who are great at being members of Congress, but it sounds like a shitty job right now. It seems like a shitty job. You have to share a bathroom with Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I am almost positive both of them pee on the seat and don't make sure that it's clean before they leave.
They don't take a little piece of TP and clean up after themselves.
No, absolutely not. So, you know, that she's not leaving. She's leaving a work environment that is rife with the worst possible coworkers. And whatever, Liz Cheney will be fine. But I also think that, if we don't take a minute to occasionally recognize people who are doing the bare fucking minimum, there is no, it reduces the actual incentive for people to do the bare fucking minimum.
Very good point. Very good point.
Not that Liz Cheney is like, I really need these feminist podcast hosts to think that this one thing that I'm doing is cool, because Liz, you cannot sit with us.
You can't, but if you want to think we're cool, that is fine. That is your prerogative.
That is fine. If you want to slowly realize for the rest of your life that all of the work you did up until you were ousted from party leadership in 2021, she was more in lockstep with Trump at that point, by the way, than the woman who ended up replacing her in Republican Party leadership, Elise Stefanik, who has gone insane.
You mean after she ousted the woman who was her mentor?
Yeah. Ooh, yikes. It's like a terrible remake of All About Eve.
Totally. I mean, it's like, it's really something.
Yeah. I do not want to watch a remake of All About Eve about these two people in politics, because God knows giving DC people movies where Hollywood people play them only encourages them to be
bad
ridiculous.
Behavior. 100%.
We need to
Couldn't
stop
agree more.
We cannot make any more movies about things that happen in Washington, because that's what they want more than anything else. They just want actors to play them in movies.
They're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's like when they made that movie Too Big to Fail. I was like, Tim Geithner, you know you're not Billy Crudup, right?
I mean, even with the first ladies, when they had Michelle Pfeiffer as Betty Ford, I was like, really? I mean, Betty Ford isn't around to be like, I'm Michelle Pfeiffer. But
it's
still.
true. Though, gotta tell you, that's like one of the shows that I was like, I think I learned something. I didn't realize all those interesting things about Betty Ford.
Yeah, she was an interesting ass lady. Okay, so Liz Cheney, we are glad that Liz Cheney is doing the right thing, but we also see Liz Cheney for who she is as a product of her life's work, which was in this Washington Post article I read around the time that she was ousted from leadership. She had an 80 rating from the Heritage Foundation. That's like usually
a lot.
The word heritage attached to things is just shorthand for bad.
Right. Yeah, agree. Slave owner,
Yeah,
heritage.
slavey, conservative. Bad. So she was like a very staunch, like, heritage-y conservative, and she wasn't, her politics just suck. But I'm glad she's doing the right thing on this. I think that she's doing a good job running the hearings.
She is. I mean, she is impressively in command of the proceedings.
Mm-hmm. And also, and this is going to sound catty, but like this is a space where cattiness is acceptable.
Mm-hmm. Where are you going to get catty?
Look, Liz Cheney shows that it is possible to have blonde hair as a Republican woman and not have it look like absolute dog shit. Not have it look like your stylist hates you. Like, it is possible to have a nice dye job,
Nice dye job, good, nice blowout too. I mean, she's really well coiffed.
Yes, you can be a Republican and also not look like your stylist is mad at you, which I think a lot of the other ones kind of do. Meow 200th episode. Okay, let's move on to something else. When I first saw this headline, I thought it was a joke. There is a tampon shortage.
Tampon shortage, what do you know?
There's a tampon shortage because of the supply chain, which has just become like this thing that people blame things on, but also is responsible for a lot of things. But I feel like it can't all be the supply chain's fault. A tampon shortage is putting a strain on consumers. Basically, a lot of people who need tampons are having a hard time finding them in the store.
The one thing that jumped out at me in this article, aside from the fact that come on, tampon shortage, is that it was also based on a shortage of raw materials, where they list cotton, rayon, and plastic. Now I get plastic, the applicator, but rayon, I was like, need to check the ingredients in my tampons. I'm good.
Rayon.
Mine are organic cotton, but rayon was a bit of I was like, back up. Where's the rayon come into play? Is it the string? I don't know, but by next week I'm going to have sorted this out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's a quote from Elise Joy, the executive director of Girls Helping Girls, period, which donates feminine hygiene products, and says, I see the supplies dwindling in the warehouse. We're okay for the moment for the next couple of months given the supplies I have, but I don't necessarily know what's going to happen in the fall. There is no path forward if you menstruate or are, it's possible to get pregnant. If you're a woman, there's no path forward here that is not like, this is a pain in the ass. Like being a woman, having a period was already just like a big fucking pain. Why do we keep leveling up on the bullshit? Like, do we make it to the end of a level and it's like, we beat the bullshit boss, time to do a harder level where there's like spinning fire wheels of bullshit and we have to jump over them like Mario?
It is so one. I was really feeling the Mario before you even said it. Okay, totally feeling the Mario vibes here. But also, like, I mean, I like to say it. I'm going to say it again. Erin, I'm 46 years old. Have I not graduated past the point of having to consider things like we did in middle school where you're like, oh my God, I got my period. Do I have to roll up toilet paper and put it in my underwear? Like, come on.
They're driving us to a point of just like free bleeding because on one hand, it's like, all right, well, you know what? Not going to have a baby into this environment. This is a hellscape.
Well,
and then,
if you do, there's no formula.
Yeah, if you do, there's no formula. If you don't and you get your period, there's no tampons. It's just like, what?
Also, it's not just a tampon shortage. It's all the products except for the cup.
I wonder if this is going to, I'm sorry I'm putting this out into the universe, but I really hope this doesn't end up being in every type of personal absorbency product shortage. So like, what if we run out of diapers? What if this expands to like...
It's a reasonable question.
Am I going to have to be one of those hippies that teaches my daughter how to like, oh my gosh, you know about this?
We're like you.
You hold the baby over a toilet and you're like, okay, go.
Let's go.
Oh, man. This is just a hellscape. I can't. It's almost one of those things that every time something new bad happens, I like laugh because I'm out of frowns.
Because it's like in the grand scheme of things, is the tampon shortage the worst thing that's happening? It's not, but it's bad.
Yeah, it's not good. And I think that with the tampon shortage, I think that we should be able to call off from work if we have our periods and there's no
like you can in
available.
some other countries.
Yeah. I mean, you
Just
can
saying.
here, but you can't call in and be like, I've got my period. I'm not coming to work. You have to make up something.
Right. And I don't want to lie. We've worked too hard. Why should I have to pretend like, oh, no, I have the flu. I don't have the flu. I have my period and there are no tampons.
Speaking of liars, Marjorie Taylor Greene has something to say about this. And I don't like saying...
Consistently the dumbest bitch in the game.
She's so stupid. And like, apologies to Jim Jordan, who is among the dumbest, and Louis Gohmert, who is also extremely stupid. Marjorie Taylor Greene this week claimed on Monday that the tampon shortage is being fueled by tampons being placed in men's bathroom for transgender people.
Mm-hmm. That is causing the shortage.
Okay. I have so many questions. I want to sit her down and be like, explain this. How widespread do you think this is?
She's a disturbingly... when I was growing up, there were really two words you couldn't say. Hate. You can't hate anybody. And you can't call someone dumb and or stupid. She really is someone who I hate and is dumb and stupid.
Whoa. Yeah, that's that would have gotten me in trouble as well in my house. But it's true. She's really, really bad. I just don't understand. I feel like we need to bring back shame. There was this real anti-shaming movement at a certain, I wouldn't say like during the Wild West of the aughts when I was working as a blogger in like 2013, where it was like, don't shame me for, kink shaming was, we don't kink shame. We don't shame for this. We don't shame for that. We need to start stupid shaming.
Stupid shaming feels in need because she has to stop.
If you don't know something, like, look, there's nothing shameful about not knowing something and trying to find the answer to it, but there is something shameful about having no fucking idea what you're talking about and speaking on it as an authority. And I believe that that's the type of stupid shaming that we need to bring back. Marjorie Taylor Greene is... Oh, she's so stupid. I like I said last week, I don't want to share a planet with her. I'm done.
No.
Okay, let's see. One more thing. Ohio law. There's a law in Ohio allowing teachers to carry guns in school after 1 day of training, 24 hours of training under
Maximum.
Under
That's the
new
maximum you
legislation.
need.
Riddle me this. Why are lawmakers spending all this time cutting teacher benefits, making it difficult for them to unionize, treating them like subhumans, treating them like glorified babysitters when they're actually, educated professionals who are like educating children who need to be surveilled, who may be grooming kids. People on the right are throwing all of this hate at teachers. And now they're like, but let's give them guns.
Let's give them guns and have them do what 19 armed police officers in Uvalde could not or did not do. Erin, this is some of the dumbest shit I have ever heard. And, you and I have talked about this before. I am confounded by this because the head of the Ohio Fraternal Order of Police was on CNN this week talking about what a terrible idea this is. And I just want to know where all of the police unions are on gun safety and why they don't come out and say, like, in support of things that they're clearly in support of, because, like, this is just going to keep happening. This isn't going to make anybody safer. Like, the teacher's number one, like, job in these, trainings that they go through is, like, take care of the kids. They have to go through all the protocols. And then what? They go grab their gun and hope that whoever comes through the door is the shooter? I mean, it's like... It's one of the most fucking insane non-solutions to a terrible problem I've ever seen.
I would be cool with teachers being intensely trained in, like, sword play.
Jiu-jitsu, okay?
But like a sword, like, I mean, here's the thing. Like, let's do a thought experiment. Would any police officers be cool with all the teachers being handed a machete? Like a giant ass machete, and you hang up the machete in your classroom, because a machete can do damage, but it can't do as much damage as a gun. So, like, why are we cool with something that can be used to hurt so many people, but not like a giant fucking machete? It's patently absurd.
Why not? I don't know. Give teachers classes in welding so they can take the windows down in their classrooms and get kids out of the classroom. I don't know. There are so many other creative solutions here. If this is where we're going, then, like, here is a gun. It's on you now. Good luck. Especially when you have, like, the teacher in Uvalde who was shot and survived, and he's blaming himself and hoping the parents aren't mad at him. Like, why are we putting this added pressure on teachers to be like, you know what? You're fully the front line of defense now. Like, they're the front lines on everything, but, like, here's your gun. So fucking dumb.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to touch on one more story because it's June, it's Pride Month, right? And this is like a crappy story, but I think it reminds people that, like, it's not like gay people got the right to marry and now you can buy rainbow shirts at Target and now everything is fine, because everything isn't fine. People who are members of the LGBTQ movement, people who are LGBTQ, are still targeted disproportionately for violence and hate. And an example of that is that there have been pride events targeted by right-wing groups. This past weekend, there were multiple incidents across the country where right-wing groups attacked pride events. On Saturday, Proud Boys heckled a drag queen doing a children's reading event in Northern California. On Sunday, a senator, a state senator who's gay, received an email with death threats. He had to have bomb-sniffing dogs check his home. There's also this account on TikTok, Libs of TikTok, which just sends 6 people after LGBTQ people. And it's gross. It's going to end with somebody getting very badly hurt.
Well, and you know what just happened in Baltimore before we came on to record? 3 houses burned down because people set their pride flags on fire that were hanging from their porches. And the houses burned down. I mean...
That's, yeah. I just want to issue a quick correction. Libs of TikTok is a Twitter account.
I was confused by that.
Yeah, it's Taylor Lorenz from the Washington Post exposed who this person is.
Oh,
and,
yes.
yeah, and all the right wing like lost their shit because they're like, it's doxing, and it's like, no, it's
no, that's not
a public figure is not owed anonymity, and nobody like gave away what her address is and stuff. But yeah, it's just like this creepy lady from Brooklyn, I think. Just a creep.
Oh,
it's just a random ass creep who like ruins people's lives and gets off on it. So, yeah. So happy Pride. If you have Pride events in your city and you want to support members of the LGBTQ community, please do so. I think it's a good month to do it. It's always a good month to do it, but especially this month is a good month to do it. Also, drag queen like public library reading stuff. I would have loved that shit as a kid.
I agree. I mean, that is, imagine the hungry caterpillar.
Oh,
so much more flair.
Oh my gosh. Give me theatrics. Give me makeup. Give me hair. Give
Drama.
me a huge dress. I loved Miss Yvonne from Pee-wee's Playhouse when I was a kid. She was like my favorite character, and I feel like her entire vibe was like meant to teach children about drag queens without actually having a drag queen on TV.
That's a good point.
In the 80s. But yeah, go to a drag queen book reading. I think that sounds so fun. I want to do it.
Agree.
I'll bring my baby. She'll freak out.
She'd love it. Baby loves that.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we have an interview with Katy Tur. And welcome back. Today's guest is an NBC News correspondent, host of MSNBC's Katy Tur Reports, and a New York Times bestselling author. Her new memoir, Rough Draft, hit stores this week. Katy Tur, we're so happy to have you join us today on Hysteria.
I am so thrilled to be here, and if you would like fries with that, I can definitely get it for you.
I love it. I would like fries with that, and it is 9 in
I'm
the
making
morning.
a play
right
if you're
now.
watching on my headset. I've got a very fancy 1992 headset on my head.
I was gonna say you look like you're talking to us from a helicopter. Like this is part of the costume as like the book tour.
Part of the book publishing stick.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that would
that's
be.
what they forced it. They said you gotta act the part, you gotta play the part, you gotta encompass it all.
It's one of those book release parties where you're like, who came up with this idea? And everybody is wearing headsets. It's like a silent disco. Okay, so let's get into the book. Holy crap, Katy! It is a journey. It does not disappoint. So you grew up being known as Bob Tur's kid. Your parents were Emmy-winning helicopter journalists, or like the original helicopter parents, maybe? They pioneered covering news from the air. They were famously the first to broadcast the O.J. Simpson white Bronco chase in 1994, among other iconic footage. In your new book, you talk about being the little kid in the helicopter hangar entertaining yourself where your parents worked, which is crazy. That sounds like a book series I would have checked out from the library in the 80s.
It would have been fun. Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe that'll be my next book, the children's version of it all. The lighter, happier children's version of it all.
Right. I was going to say, there's a lot of stuff in here that is not for kids. You go into detail about your dad being a person who is both a brilliant, bold pioneer, but also kind of a nightmare person at other times. Can you talk a little bit about the tug of war you felt between admiration for your dad and the pain that they caused you and your mom?
So, and you're being very careful about pronouns, so let me give a disclaimer on pronouns. My dad in 2013 transitioned, and my dad was Bob before and is Zoe now. So when I'm talking about memories of the past, I will use the pronoun he, just because that's the memory and that's how the story unfolded. And when I'm talking in the present, anytime after she came out to me, it will be she. So supportive of the transition. It's just meant to be clear about the history. Yes, my parents were helicopter journalists. If you saw the OJ chase in the 90s, if you saw the Reginald Denny beating, the guy that got pulled from the red gravel truck during the LA riots, if you saw any Malibu fire, any police pursuit, if you saw Madonna giving a camera the finger, that was footage that my parents shot. And it provided me with a extremely unique and vivid childhood. And it was awesome. It was really fun. I grew up in a helicopter. I was in a helicopter more than I was in my own bed. I could fly it when I was a little kid. I mean, I could hold the joystick.
Did you fly it? Did they?
Yeah,
let you?
I mean, my dad would. I'd sit up front and I'd hold the joystick. It was very fun, and I felt special. I felt really special. But in addition to all of the excitement and the fun and the adventure, there was a little bit of violence and a lot of anger, and some pretty scary moments. So there were really high highs and there were very low lows. And I detail in the book the confusion around trying to, how to remember my childhood, whether to embrace it and to love it or to push it away. And frankly, I mean, I've been running away from it. I moved to New York when I was 22. I just dropped everything and I got in a plane and I moved to New York. I've only spent a few days back in LA every few years since then. And every time I go, I land and I'm filled with this flood of longing. And the second I get there, I feel anxiety and stress and I want to leave immediately. So I can't spend more than a couple days there at a time. And it's sad because I feel like I'm missing so much. It was time to confront it all, to go back. What does Jack say in 30 Rock? You got to go down into the crevasse, Liz, in order to come back up. That was me. And so I went back and I confronted and I tried to understand all the violence alongside all of the adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I felt like it was a very candid and honest look at the confusion that a person would feel having like admired somebody but also been afraid of them.
Yeah.
And that's just not really a mixture of emotions you see depicted because it's so gray area,
But it's emotions and confusion. That gray area, a lot of people live with it. Mm-hmm. It's not unique. And I think that you grow up being ashamed of it or being scared to talk about it because somebody will think you're weird, and I've had that happen. I've had boyfriends whose families were really great. They literally grew up behind a picket fence, and their parents were still married. They had Thanksgiving dinners where nobody fought or stormed out or threw things. And I remember feeling lucky to be there and being envious of all the happiness, but also feeling deeply uncomfortable because it was so unfamiliar. Like I was a fraud at the table. And the book has only just come out, but I've already gotten a bunch of notes from people that I'm close to that I didn't know this about, saying, thank you for going there because I feel like I'm not allowed to talk about what I experienced, or I don't talk to my parent right now for this reason as well. And it's nice to know that you're not alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that sometimes with stories like this, maybe the fear is that they don't want to hurt their parent by speaking about it. But you and your dad are estranged. Has she reached out to you since the book was released, and do you expect her to?
So not since the book was released, no. In the lead up, I think she saw a review and she was not happy about it. And I was scared to write the book. I am scared for it to come out. And I was scared, as you said, to hurt my dad. I didn't want her to feel bad. I didn't want to cause more pain. I didn't want to, I feel bad about it as we speak, but it also is the truth. Mm-hmm. And if I'm going to go back and tell the full story with all of the fun that was there and all of the incredible things that my parents did, the groundbreaking journalism, and the first, few chapters, I read them again now, and I miss it all so much. It was so much fun. It was so much fun, and it reads that way, and I miss everything. And in order to tell that and to be honest about the story so that one, it's an interesting read, but two, because I want my kids to know about who I am and where I come from and what their grandparents did, you got to be honest. And you can't sugarcoat it, because sugarcoating it gives you a bad story. It's inauthentic, and it doesn't help anything. I mean, I'm a journalist. I'm in the business of truth. Mm-hmm. And so I got to be honest. I got to be true.
Mm-hmm. Katy, you talk about how you tried to turn the page and you go to New York. Now, I loved reading about your first experiences in news. Can you tell us about your first days at News 12 as Princess Turd? Did they really say your boobs were too big, Katy?
Yes, and it was, so I got my first job at a place called News 12, and the tagline is as local news gets, and it was, you were a one-man band or a one-woman band, and you were in charge of carrying your own camera, and at the time it wasn't like a little tiny thing that you see people have now. It was a giant Betacam and a giant pair of professional sticks, tripod, and you would carry this around to all sorts of neighborhoods in the Bronx or Brooklyn. I was assigned to mostly Brooklyn, and you'd report the story, you'd shoot the story, you'd haul the tape back to the office, you'd edit the story and voice it and get it on the air. And so I'm just starting out, and the news director says, love you, going to hire you. You've passed the test, but you can't put your face on my television. I can't have your face on my network until you do a couple things. And one of them was, your boobs are too big for your clothes. Which at the time I remember thinking,
that's not your face though. That's your boobs. You can't. He's saying you can't.
You need to wear clothes that better suit your boobs. And I don't remember if he said boobs or breasts or just gestured with a pencil, but the message was clear. It was clear. I need to figure out a way to hide my boobs, I guess. And just imagine being a man and having someone say, like, you got to hide that gut of yours. It just doesn't happen. Or if it does, it shouldn't. But there was that. And then there was also, and I hope you'll laugh at this, Alyssa, he had a binder full of women that he,
a binder.
It was a literal binder full of women that he pushed across the desk. And it contained a bunch of glossy rip-outs from magazines of women and with short hairstyles, blunt bobs with stripes, highlights, and it was a whole stack of them. And he said, you have to cut your hair. You can choose any of these styles. And it was all the same style. It was all blunt bob stripes. And I, at the time, had like this long hair, and he said, you don't look professional with the boobs and the hair. And also, oh, by the way, your name is not Katy. Your name is Catherine. Katy's been taken. Because at the time, Katy Tur was on the Today Show. You can't be Katy because there's already a Katy.
But, Katy, how are there no pictures? How is there no footage or documentation of said Bob?
Oh, no, there is. There is. And then, I have it. I have it at my house. And I have my quote-unquote reels, my tapes that I had to send out to get other jobs. And they contain the short hair. I figured out the short hair as it went. It actually didn't look half bad. But the first few times, lots of hairspray. I looked many decades older than I was. Lots of hairspray, lots of makeup. I'm a tomboy. I wore big T-shirts down to my knees. I never wore makeup. My hair was barely combed. It was a real change.
Oh, Katy, what was the first big major news story that you covered on the ground as a correspondent?
As a network correspondent or a local correspondent?
I mean, it's your story, you pick.
As a local news correspondent, it was a cop shot. That was my first live shot. It was sad. For regular local news, it was a crane that had collapsed on the Upper East Side. Remember this? There was a big crane that collapsed on the Upper East Side, and it went through a bunch of buildings, and there was rubble on the ground, and people were trapped, and it was dramatic. And in local news, you don't do wall-to-wall coverage in local news like cable. You don't just blow out everything and keep talking because it costs the networks money to blow out their syndicated programming. But they did it for this, and I was the only one live on the ground, and I just talked for hours, and it was amazing. And it led to some real changes in the regulations, which, it was a tragedy you were covering, but you were also covering the change that had to come from it. And then for the network, Trump. Wow. Trump.
Man,
which is probably why you know who I am.
What a seismic event in a lot of journalists' lives. Sometimes looking back on the Trump presidency, I'm like, Man, that was terrible for America, but how many careers was it really good for? And then I get uncomfortable.
And that's what's uncomfortable about it. I mean, journalism is one of those careers where the worse things get, the better it is for a journalist. And that's not to say that anyone's rooting for it to get bad, because there are a lot of cynics out there who will say, oh, journalists just want Trump back because he was great for ratings, or journalists just want terrible things to happen because they capitalize on it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a weird symbiotic relationship. But no one's rooting for things to go wrong. Mm-hmm. They just do go wrong, and you need somebody to cover it.
Yeah. So I would say like private equity firms that are interested in buying out like media outlets who want to like pump up the value of it are maybe rooting for things to go wrong. But, not the journalists.
They're the true
They're the
ones.
bad ones.
Yeah, they're the bad guys.
They're the bad guys. So you're a journalist who's made it. You've had multiple books come out. You anchor your own show. You still say you deal with imposter syndrome. So when you talk about coming back from maternity leave, you write, not being in the mix had exacerbated my already acute worry that I was a professional fraud just waiting to be sniffed out. So do you think you'll ever get to a point where that goes away, or does it just look different as you
I don't know. I would love to talk to Barbara Walters and be like, did you ever get to a point where you felt like you belonged and you'd made it? And I hope her answer is yes. The farther I get along in this career, the louder those demons get. It's weird. Like the more successful you become, the louder the voices in your head that say that everyone hates you and no one really wants you here, and they're just waiting for their opening to take you out.
Oh, man.
It's sick and it's twisted.
Yeah.
And I wish that I could say that I have a solution for it, but it's mostly just me looking in the mirror and telling those voices to shut up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sort of like heavy metal poisoning moving up the food chain. Like the higher up the food chain you are, like the more heavy metals you have in your system.
That is a perfect analogy. I'm going to use that. I'm stealing it from you.
Okay, fine. You're like a tuna fish, essentially, swimming out here with all of the mercury because you're eating all the other little fish. Okay.
Yeah.
What besides fleeting recognition, like a bestseller or, having a great show, what reminds you that you know how to do your job besides looking in the mirror? Like, are there moments on the job?
Yeah, when breaking news happens, when things start to unfold in my hour while I'm on television and we don't know much, that's when I wanted to be a doctor for a while, and I wanted to be an ER surgeon because I always felt that I was best when everything was falling apart around me. I was most focused, most coherent when I was in the middle of a crisis, which has a lot to do with my childhood, I imagine. And so when there's breaking news right now, I get a rush, I get an adrenaline rush, and I feel like everything switches on.
Katy, you're an LA native. What do you think about the state of LA politics? How has it changed since you lived there?
Oh, it's such a good question. LA is a strange place to me. It's always been a bit of a strange place. A bit of the Wild West. And it's always had some real fundamental problems, some structural problems in terms of the haves and the have-nots, some racial issues. LA is a big melting pot, everyone says. Everyone lives in LA. But not really. I mean, LA is so segregated by neighborhood. You drive from one place to the other. You rarely stop in a neighborhood that is not your own or not your intended destination. It's just strange. It's a strange place. Whereas New York is a place where you really do mix. It really does feel more like a melting pot because everybody gets on the subway, the Wall Street banker and, the cashier at CVS. Like everybody is on the same train. The mayor takes the train. But in Los Angeles, you don't have that. And you're seeing the problems with that separation right now when it comes to the housing crisis, especially. And going back to LA and seeing the number of tent cities that they're dealing with, it's strange. And it feels like a really big problem that I have yet to see anyone actually tackle. And I'm always loath to trust somebody who says it's an easy fix because I'm not so sure it is. Also, like, just going to places that I remember. I know Rick Caruso is running for mayor, and I'm not making a judgment on whether he's a good candidate, but his developments are so glossy and so weird to me. The Grove is I guess cool, but I liked the farmers market when it was a little gritty. He went to my hometown, the Palisades, which is it's a nice place. It's gotten extremely wealthy since I left. I mean, I go there and I think like, oh my God, I can't even go to the grocery store here. It's crazy. But they ripped up our main street in the Palisades, which had a place called Mort's Deli. It was like a cafeteria style place. Like Larry David used to film episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm in there. It just was this old retro place. It was a bit run down, and he ripped the whole main street out and built up this very pretty clean facade with a bunch of extremely fancy stores and like a Chanel boutique. And it feels like Pleasantville. And I don't know. I mean, I if I were voting in Los Angeles, I think I would look at that and wonder what's behind it all. But again, I'm not making any judgment on Rick Caruso because I'm not in LA politics and I don't know what that city needs. I know it's going to be a hard fought race between him and Karen Bass.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, Katie. I moved from the neighborhood that's right by the right by the Grove. And now I live not far from the Americana, which are two Caruso developments. And honestly, some days I'm like, I just want to walk in a place where it's a pretend nice place. You know, like I know that the smell of whatever pretzels is like artificial. And I know that there's, you know, why are we listening to Frank Sinatra? Why is the fountain dancing? But sometimes it's just like, I just want to live in this like acid trip version of like Main Street. Like Disneyland.
I think that's totally admirable, and I'm not saying it's wrong. For me, it just feels weird going back to. I guess you can never go home again. I don't know. It feels weird going back to my hometown and not seeing, and just seeing this idealized version of it.
Right. Yeah, it's weird out here, Katie. I can attest to the fact that it is weird out here.
But the weather is great.
It's fine.
Can't beat the weather.
It's fine. I smell like a foot by the end of every day because I dress for the cool mornings and then it's the afternoon and I'm sweaty. Katy Tur, thank you so much for writing your book. Rough Draft in stores now. It's fun. It is a fun, harrowing, great memoir.
It is.
And for Alyssa, there's a section on fish.
Oh, good.
I mean, someday, Katie, we're going to see a show together.
I hope so. And I hope we don't remember much of it.
Yeah, please Instagram live it, though, so, like, the internet can remember whatever you don't.
That defeats the whole purpose. Are you crazy? We're going to go in wigs and masks and just be loose.
I think that'd be cool. Well, tell me about it then, Alyssa. Text me. Live text
me. I promise.
Thanks so much for joining us, Katie. Congrats on the book again, and come back again soon.
Thanks so much for having me.